Bing bing bong. We are watching Disturbing Lost Media Volume 4. This is Unreal Aired actually. We just found this channel. It's a little spooky, but
Not a lot of folks had actually seen the video, the content, because it is horribly graphic.
Many of the details are too gruesome to describe.
This is Lost Media.
This is horror
I'm
film
not
playing
sure.
out in real life.
I like Ghost actually a lot more. We might get back to Ghost videos, honestly, or like the Bizarre Bub spooky
One
ghost.
day in June of 2018, a 34-year-old woman named Kim Devins was on the phone with a private investigator. She was trying to locate her 16-year-old daughter, who went missing from her home in Utica, New York. Although she didn't leave much behind, Kim already had an idea as to where she might be. You see, this wasn't the first time that her daughter Bianca had gone missing. Bianca had struggled with mental disorders, like social anxiety and borderline personality disorder, which made it difficult for her to make friends in person. And so she had found it much easier to just make friends through online spaces, like Instagram, Discord, and 4chan. A year before, in 2017, she had met a love interest on 4chan's, Cams, and Meetups board. And without any warning, she would run away from home to go see him.
Dude, imagine meeting some. I mean, I guess this is
Kim would
back
try
before
her
internet,
best
huh?
to give her the help she needed so she
Or
would
like
stop
not
doing
like that,
this.
but like fucking
But
4chan,
nothing
bro.
really seemed to work. In fact, this time she had cut off her ankle monitor. Not long before this, she'd been placed under house arrest.
No.
And so when Bianca was eventually found, Kim decided that the best course of action from here would be to send her to a therapeutic boarding school for about 4 to 5 months.
So she's back and found
When
it.
Bianca
Now
returned
she's
home in February of 2019, she was doing much better.
19.
She had just turned 17, and she had many plans for her
someone
future.
on 4chan?
Now, she still used social media, as she posted to a close-knit Instagram following, consisting of mostly friends or people that she knew in person. But there were still some who actually would stumble across her page and reach out to her seeking a friendship. Which is exactly how Brandon entered the picture.
What the fuck is this gonna be about?
In the spring of 2019, Bianca would receive a message on Instagram from a 21-year-old man named Brandon Clark. Brandon lived in Cicero, which was 50 minutes away from Utica where Bianca lived. They had a few things in common, got along decently well, and became good friends. In almost no time at all, he had completely implemented himself into her life, and even attended her graduation party. To her friends and family, Brandon was just your average nerdy guy, who was a little bit weird at times, but that was it. Eventually though, Brandon would make it clear to Bianca that he was interested in more than just a friendship. He wanted her to become his girlfriend. But she would just tell him that she wanted to stay friends, and that she wasn't looking for a relationship, especially because she was going into college in the fall, and she just wanted to focus on her studies. Brandon would have a hard time coming to terms with this at first. He had this sense of entitlement because he felt like he had spent a lot of time and money on her, and so he felt like he just couldn't let this go. He referred to himself as her boyfriend, and continuously fed into this delusion, even though it was fairly obvious that she just wasn't interested.
Stop talking to him.
But
What
after
the
some
fuck
time,
is
for
this,
whatever
bro?
reason, Brandon stopped making a big deal out of it, and just seemed to accept that this was going to be the way things are. So much so that he even offered to drive her to a concert where she was planning to meet another guy that she'd been texting. Brandon reassured her that he was fine with it because after all, they were just friends.
What the fuck?
On the evening of July
I don't believe in
13th,
just having those
2019,
types of friends, honestly.
Bianca and Brandon, joined by this guy that she'd been texting named Alex, were hanging out in a small venue where the concert was being held called Trans Pecos, which was 4 hours away in Queens, New York. As the night progressed, Bianca was having a wonderful time. She and Alex were getting to know each other, they were holding hands, and eventually she would go in for a kiss. Although Brandon didn't say anything, Bianca would notice a change in Brandon's behavior after the kiss. He was visibly enraged, and she could easily tell that he was not having it. But he didn't say a word and just kept to himself for the rest of the night. As the concert is finally wrapping up,
dude.
and everyone else is on their way home, Bianca's exhausted after the long night out and gets comfortable in the back seat of Brandon's Ford Explorer. Brandon enters in the directions into his phone, and he begins the 4-hour drive back home.
4?
During the ride, Bianca pulls out her phone and starts texting one of her Discord friends about how much she had a good time and how she was getting to know Alex. But in the back of her head, she's thinking about how Brandon is obviously upset with her, and she would briefly bring it up in the conversation. However, she would just poke fun at the situation and kind of laugh it off, since she knows they had already gone over this and it's likely nothing to worry about. And so now, feeling really tired,
What are
she
those
shuts
texts? I
off her
can't. I
phone
can't read that.
and goes to sleep.
I think it was supposed to be unreadable.
At around 7 a.m. the following morning on July 14th, 2019, Bianca's family would receive a knock at the door. It was the police. They walk inside and ask Kim if she can get a hold of her daughter. She tries giving her a call, but she doesn't pick up, and it goes straight to voicemail. Police explain they had been sent to do a welfare check because they had received numerous phone calls from people who had all seen something extremely concerning online that appeared to show Bianca, and they feared that she might be in danger. But most notably, they had also received a phone call from Brandon. He made some incredibly disturbing claims that, if true, would confirm other callers' concerns. As they're trying to make sense of what's going on, Bianca's sister Olivia lets out a blood-curdling scream from the kitchen.
What happened?
She had been texted an image, and it looked like something straight out of a horror movie.
Oh no, dude. What?
They weren't sure if the image was real, but if it was, then it would mean that Brandon was telling the truth.
About... Dude, about what, dude?
When Bianca fell asleep, Brandon took a picture of the New York Thruway and posted it to his Instagram story. He captioned it, "Here Comes Hell, It's Redemption," which is a lyric from the band Hollywood Undead. He also posted a quote from the movie Fight Club and changed his bio to include his birthday and the day's date.
So Brandon's dead? Okay.
When Brandon was about 10 minutes away from Bianca's home, he took a
Turn back
detour
out.
and pulled in to a secluded dead-end road. He parked close to the end, shut off the engine, and exited the vehicle. He walked to the back seat where Bianca was sleeping and woke her up and immediately started confronting her about the kiss that she had with Alex.
I saw you kiss him, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, these are all fucking
I'm
fake,
sorry,
dude.
it's not good enough.
Bianca reminds him again that they are just friends and have had this discussion several times before. But she apologizes to him for the kiss, and she pretty much just asks, "Are you ready to take me home now?" Brandon is still refusing to budge, and she's getting annoyed. She just wants to go home. And so she tells him, "You know what? If you won't take me home, I'll just walk home." Suddenly, Brandon reveals a knife and begins stabbing her across the neck multiple times. And he watches as the life of Bianca Devins
What the fuck, though? Wait, what
fades
was the dude? The Alex guy.
before his eyes. So now Brandon is standing there drenched in blood, and instead of thinking, "What have I just done?" Brandon decides that now is a good time to start taking photos. And so he pulls out his phone and he starts taking photos of her dead body. One of these
And
photos
he
he took of her
uploads it?
body, he would send in a Discord server where she frequently talked to her friends and captioned it saying, "Sorry fuckers, you're gonna have to find somebody else to orbit." He then called 911 and told them what he did, his location, and what he was going to do next.
911, what is the emergency?
My name is Brandon. There's going to be a murder. The victim is Bianca Michelle Devins. I'm going to myself.
Just stay on the line with me, okay?
No, I'm not going to stay in line with you. I'm going to be dead on the ground.
After hanging up with the dispatcher, he dragged Bianca's body out of his vehicle, concealed it under a tarp, and took pictures of the tarp and himself. All while he did this, he shared these photos to Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. And almost right away, these photos began to rapidly spread around the internet, unlike anything ever seen before. In little time, these photos had already made their way to her family. That photo that had everybody so concerned was the photo of Bianca's dead body. While all of this was going on, Brandon had created a small fire to burn his laptop and hard drive, spray painted the phrase, "May you never forget me" on the road, and then programmed a Bluetooth speaker to play the song Test Drive by Joji on loop, which is a song about a one-sided relationship.
I've never listened to Joji.
And then he waited for the police to arrive.
That just put a bad taste in my mouth too.
Once
I'm
the
like, I
police
heard
did
Joji,
arrive,
the
he
pink
started
guy was
walking
cool.
away from the police and tried using the knife on his own throat. But he stopped because it was too painful and took one last photo of himself for a Snapchat story before being taken away in critical condition. Brandon's injuries were severe, but paramedics arrived and were able to save him. And once he recovered in the hospital, he was promptly arrested for Bianca's murder. Brandon pleaded not guilty. He claimed that he blacked out and didn't even know what he did. But there was plenty of evidence that said just the opposite. Investigators learned that Brandon was meticulous in his planning, as he kept a detailed checklist on his phone that contained what he was going to post on his Instagram story, what he was going to change his bio to, and the final song that he would play at the crime scene. And then they looked at his computer, which revealed that he'd been searching things like how to find the carotid artery. And one of these searches was just how to kill someone. These findings were certainly incriminating, but were nothing compared to one crucial piece of evidence.
What else is there?
In the early hours of that July morning in 2019, before Brandon left his vehicle to argue with Bianca and ultimately close the book on her life, he had affixed his cell phone to the vent of the dashboard, and he pressed record.
What the fuck?
He recorded the argument, the murder, and kept the camera rolling as she took her last breaths. This video had only been seen by law enforcement, and Brandon did not want it being shown in court. Once he learned that it would, he changed his plea to guilty in February of 2020, so there wouldn't be a trial altogether.
I plead guilty, Your Honor.
Brandon Clark, the man who pleaded guilty to murdering 17-year-old Bianca Devins, tells the court he made the plea today because he didn't want the Devins family to see evidence come out during trial.
I thought about the lives I've torn apart with my actions.
But Assistant District Attorney Sarah DeMellier thinks otherwise.
He videotaped the homicide. I think it is my opinion that he absolutely does not want anybody to see what he inflicted on Bianca. on the date of the homicide.
Why would
He does
anyone
not
want to
want
watch
anyone to
that?
see that video.
What the fuck is she
On
even
March
talking about, dude?
16th,
Why would
2021,
anyone?
Brandon was given his sentence.
Hopefully to death, bro. What the hell? Holy,
Will
bro.
be the sentence of this court adds to the defendant's conviction for murder in the second degree. He will be sentenced to an indeterminate sentence of imprisonment and shall have a minimum term of 25 years and a maximum term of life imprisonment.
Hundreds of people gathered for a vigil tonight to remember 17-year-old Bianca Devins. They lit candles, listened to music, and launched luminaries in her memory.
Beyond the walls of Brandon's prison cell, his actions would only continue to torment Bianca's family and her friends. Not only were they grieving over her death, but at every corner they turned, they were haunted by the photo of her dead body. They were sent the photo in DMs, tagged in posts of the photo,
Why would
and
people?
even airdropped the photo on one occasion. And so when they got news that the video footage of the murder had been sent to media outlets, they took legal action. They filed a lawsuit against the district attorney's office for sharing the video, and reached an agreement to dispose of the external hard drive that contained it. But with that being said,
It's
the
already
fate
out
of the
there,
video
then.
still remains unclear, as there could be other copies of it stored away somewhere. But one thing we
Who the
can say for
fuck's happening
certain
to the
is that
media
even
outlets?
if the video does still exist, rest assured it will never see the light of day. While the video of Bianca's last moments is lost, the photo of her dead body is not, as it still gets shared around to this day. The family has since tried working with lawmakers to pass Bianca's law, which makes it illegal in the state of New York to post graphic contents online with malicious intent. However, it has so far been largely ineffective.
Yo. This gives me a strong hatred for
Despite the
humanity.
passage of time, Bianca's mother Kim still needs to be very careful when checking her inbox, because she might just end up seeing that photo of her daughter's lifeless body.
Why would people do that? Also, people should be charged for sending that shit out.
Here it is. Here is the good prepared for your use.
He is accused of murdering at least 19 women, whom he then dismembered and buried in his home.
In the part of the ceiling, he made like a little platform where he put the camera and recorded himself.
What is this? Like cannibals or something? Yo.
In 2021, 34-year-old Reina Gonzalez, a mother of two daughters, lived with her husband, Bruno Portillo, a police officer. The two lived a fairly simple life in Antizapan, Mexico. Reina operated a small phone repair business and seemed proud of her job. Many people would come down and visit her shop. But one person would always visit her shop more frequently than the rest. A 72-year-old man named Andres Mendoza. Andres was a longtime butcher who would often come down to her shop and provide free meals to her. A kind gesture that he seemed to do seemingly out of the kindness of his heart.
Oh my god.
Not expecting to gain anything in return, and even going as far as to provide food and clothes for other people in the area as well. To the community, his reputation was anything but negative. He was seen as nothing more than an inconspicuous, at times drunk, old man who intended no harm and was well acquainted with those who knew him. But all of that would change on May 14th, 2021. It was like any other day for Reina, as she went with Andres to pick up supplies for her phone repair business. Something that Bruno thought nothing of, seeing as they were great friends with Andres and trusted him like many others did. A trust that would be permanently broken. Later that night, Bruno returned home to find only his 2 daughters, but no sign of Reina. Knowing who Reina was, this was unusual, as by now she would be home. Yet, she wasn't. As more time passed, Bruno became increasingly worried, and started the drive to Andres' house, hoping that he might know where she is. Andres claimed that she never showed up to his house that morning, and that he had no clue where she was. So far, it just seemed like Andres was hiding something, but suspicions would especially rise when he refused to let Bruno inside his house, as he did so for no apparent reason. Bruno sensed that something was wrong, but wasn't sure exactly what it was. All he knew was that Andres was not telling the truth, and so Bruno checked nearby security camera footage, which showed Reina entering Andres' house, but not leaving, confirming that Andres wasn't being honest about where Reina had actually been. Bruno returned back to Andres' house, but this time with more police officers, and entered the home after a brief struggle. The moment that he entered the house, a horrible smell became immediately apparent. He followed the scent to a basement area, where the strength of it progressively worsened. And as he continued to explore the dirty and cluttered house, he began to recognize the smell as decomposing flesh. At one point, Bruno calls Reina's cell phone, and sure enough, he can hear the ringtone. But the sound wasn't coming from the same floor that he was standing on, but rather from underneath the floor. This led him to discover a trapdoor. As he opened it, he noticed a ladder leading down into the unknown, the smell now becoming unbearable as he descended, almost burning his nostrils. In the center of this seemingly hidden room was a table. On the table sat a series of bags. He opened one of these bags, and what he saw made him sick to his stomach.
He's gonna be a head or something? Oh no, dude.
He was staring at the dismembered remains of his own wife, Reina. Appalled by this gruesome discovery, he bolted out of the house as quickly as he could and requested backup, still in disbelief at what he had just seen. They weren't sure if Reina was his only victim, or if he had been doing the same atrocities to other people, with all of his crimes just flying under the radar. And so they began thoroughly searching his house. And it did not take long before evidence was found suggesting that Andres had an absurd amount of victims. Various personal belongings were recovered, including necklaces, bracelets, purses, nail polish bottles, hair dryers, cell phones, photos, and identification cards. These identification cards included the voter cards of 2 women who went missing in the area. 32-year-old Rubicela Castillo, who went missing in 2016, and 38-year-old Flor Vizcaíno, who went missing in 2019. This was definitely concerning, but it was just the beginning.
19?
Amidst the belongings was a notebook
like
containing
19
information of
people?
29 different women,
Oh, 29?
detailing their
What the fuck?
names, addresses, the time and date of when each murder was carried out, and the weight of each victim. Entries in the notebook dated as far back as the 1990s, suggesting that he'd been killing and dismembering people for more than 30 years. One entry in the notebook read,
December 17th, 1994, 28-year-old woman, the head was 4.5 kilograms, the liver, pancreas, and heart were 4 kilograms, and the ribs and right arm were 14 kilograms, 1.5 kilograms each.
But what really served as the nail in the coffin were the videotapes that investigators found.
So he was eating
the
them
tapes
and
were
then
recorded
serving
using
them to the
8mm
people?
film and VHS, and were incriminating as they were disturbing, documenting each and every one of the murders, as well as footage of himself, at times nude, peeling off the scalps and faces of his victims, and eating their body parts.
20 video recording.
The whole time, that food that he was giving away was actually the remains of his victims. And the clothes that he was giving away were stripped from the dead. And nobody had the slightest clue. By now they knew that Andres was in fact a serial killer, and so they conducted a forensic search of his basement to really see the full extent of his crimes. And what they found was something that surpassed far beyond anybody's expectations.
They were all buried
Unearthed
there?
from his basement were 4,600 pieces of bone, which investigators believe belonged to 19 different victims, made up of 17 women, 1 man, and 1 child. As it turned out, Andres would prey on vulnerable victims, the majority of which were poor and often desperate single mothers and housewives. He would come across to them as trustworthy and only held positive intentions. He would do this by simply blending in and hiding in plain sight, as well as giving away free food and clothes. By doing this, he could avoid suspicion, taking advantage of not only their financial situation, but also their trust in him. He would lure them back to his house by offering to pay them for doing various odd jobs, which they would take, believing it was a chance to make some money. Once he was able to successfully lure a victim back to his house and away from public view, he would drive a knife through their chest and begin dissecting their corpse, with each part of the process being documented, recorded, and written down in his notebook.
What the fuck, though?
During interrogations,
Why
Andres explained
eat
that his
them
motive for the
or whatever?
killings was fueled by his hatred for women, stating how women are cold and calculated and would always leave him for other men with more money. He would ultimately admit to killing a total of 30 people, with his first victim dating all the way back to 1990. Andres was shown to be upfront and honest about his crimes, as he cooperated closely with authorities, going on record to state,
I don't deny anything. I blame myself. All I want is to tell the truth. I've done it, and that's it.
Despite not only his cooperation, but also the stockpile of evidence, including the women's belongings, the notebook, the tapes, and the skeletal remains recovered from his basement, the only crimes that Andres Mendoza has officially been found guilty of are the murder of Reina Gonzalez and the murder of another woman in July of 2019.
Sorry, what? There's so much
For
more.
those charges, he was sentenced to serve life behind bars. And much like Andres, the videotapes will never see the light of day either, as they too are not planned on being released. And it's probably for the best that it stays that way indefinitely.
But why? Like, I still don't understand why. Maybe it's the disposal?
And the these bears can bite, they can kill. And if I am weak, I go down.
And my wife was in the bedroom with the TV on, and I heard her scream. You must never listen to this.
I know, Werner. I'm never going to.
The grisly teeth.
Starting from a young age, Timothy Dexter had a drinking problem, on one occasion totaling his family's vehicle and getting arrested. After barely making it out of high school, he traveled from Long Island, New York to Peoria, Illinois. It is there that he attended college on a diving and swimming scholarship. While he attended college in Illinois, he would get introduced to something that would change the course of his life: drugs.
He asked if I wanted to stop by a mutual friend of ours' house because he wanted to pick up some cocaine.
The adverse effects of these drugs took a toll on him, and he would quickly find himself caught up in substance abuse. But
What's
it
up
was
with the badass music and the cool transitions?
And after a back injury, he lost his scholarship.
After a back injury?
In light of this setback, Timothy would continue to try his best to land on his feet, attempting to find a direction and a purpose. He seemed to be interested in television, with him auditioning for
So
TV
these are going to be
sitcoms
lost
in
media
Southern
tapes.
California, and also changing his last name to Treadwell.
What are they?
But this didn't work out either. While Timothy moved through darkness, plotted and charted his path, he would stumble over even more unknown bumps and tribulations. He would pick back up his drinking habits and also his drug habits. These habits continuously worsened, posing a significant threat to himself and everyone else around him, as he was using highly addictive, highly dangerous narcotics like cocaine and heroin. And it was only a matter of time until he overdosed.
Yeah, but
Timothy had just barely survived a near-fatal overdose, but was luckily able to make a full recovery, thanks to the help of a Vietnam War veteran named Terry.
Is this going to be the bad guy?
By this time, it was the late 1980s, and Timothy still had no idea what he wanted to do with his life. Almost everything that he tried up until this point failed, from losing his scholarship, auditioning for TV sitcoms without success, and being unable to overcome his addictions. He likely felt as though he reached a dead end. However, Terry had an idea. Terry suggested that he should travel to Alaska to learn and observe the grizzly bears in Katmai National Park. Timothy was open to this idea, because at this point he really had nothing to lose.
He got mauled by a bear?
So when the summer arrived in 1989, Timothy packed his bags and made his first trip to Alaska.
Oh no. What the hell? That's so close.
And just like that, Timothy believed that he had found his life's purpose.
Be warned. I will die for these animals. I will die for these animals. I will die for these animals. Thank you so much for letting me do this. Thank you so much for these animals, for giving me a life. I had no life. Now I have a life. It's been an amazing season. It's been difficult. But I came, I served, I protected, and I studied. And I promise, I'll be back.
He would spend every summer there, documenting the wildlife with a camera, and becoming a wildlife preservationist. But he made sure to stick to the same routine every summer. The routine consisted of spending the first half of the summer camping at a location that he called the Grizzly Sanctuary, a spacious open field where grizzly bears roamed around and showed no aggression towards him, which allowed him to get close to the bears and film them with no problems at all. During the second half of the summer, he would move his camp to another location that he called the Grizzly Maze.
Why is he getting
A
so
densely
close to those
forested
fucking
area
bears,
where
though?
he could hide behind vegetation and get dangerously close to the bears without them even noticing, capturing truly extraordinary footage of these beasts out in the wild.
Whoa.
In late June of 2003, Timothy went about his visit as he had done for the previous 13 summers, spending time at the Grizzly Sanctuary
Are they just
before
eating
eventually
grass?
setting up camp at the Grizzly Maze. The only real difference about this time was that he had brought his girlfriend with him, 37-year-old Amy Huguenard. Now, this wasn't her first time staying in Alaska, but they would typically leave around October, when grizzly bears become more aggressive as they prepare for hibernation. That fall, they initially planned on leaving September 26, 2003.
Wait, so
when they would
grizzly
catch a
bears are
connection
chill
flight back to
during like
California.
July
However,
and
the two
August or
decided to
whatever?
extend their stay for an extra week, until October 6th, 2003. Family and friends thought that this was a horrible idea,
Because that's when they start
seeing as there was a
preparing
drought
for
that fall,
hibernation.
which made the bears act more aggressive than usual. Not to mention that neither of them were carrying a weapon or bear repellent. To say it was a recipe for disaster would be putting it lightly. However, Timothy didn't care, brushing off the concerns, as by this point he was convinced that he was one of them, and felt as though he understood these bears more than anyone else could.
Oh no.
And so on September 29th, 2003, Timothy and Amy were dropped off at Calfia Lake, located inside the Grizzly Maze, expecting to be picked up 1 week later. 1 week later, on October 6th, 2003, air taxi pilot Willie Fulton makes his way to pick up the pair. But once he gets to the campsite, he finds no sign of Timothy or Amy anywhere. The campsite was abandoned and was devoid of all life. But there was one exception, and that was a grizzly bear. The pilot wastes no time and gets out of there as quickly as possible. Park rangers would arrive and recover Timothy's and Amy's remains. Their remains had been scattered all across the campsite, with the grizzly bear still guarding the area. Rangers shot the bear, and even more human remains were found in its stomach. But nothing could prepare park rangers for what they would uncover next.
The camera. Oh no.
As when retrieving their personal belongings and supplies, they would find a video camera. Park rangers inserted the tape and pressed play. At first, they only saw a blank screen, since the lens cap had been left on while it was recording. However, they did hear audio, and for 6 minutes they heard the agonizing screams of both Timothy and Amy as they got ravaged by a bear. The tape would appear in Werner Herzog's 2005 documentary about Timothy's life and tragic ending, titled The Grizzly Man. Werner was granted access to the tape by Timothy's ex-girlfriend, Jewel Polovac, who was initially handed the tape by authorities. Although we can't hear it, we can see just based off his reaction how truly disturbing the contents of it are, with Werner advising that she should just destroy the tape.
I think you should not keep it, you should destroy it.
Yeah.
I think that's what you should do.
Okay.
Because it will be the white elephant in your room all your life.
Jewel claims that she never heard the recording herself.
I've never heard white
and
elephant like
plans
that.
never to
Usually
do
it's like a Christmas thing.
burying the past in a safe deposit box. Not just so that she doesn't hear it, but also anyone else.
You could have destroyed it.
But with news of this tape even existing came a significant amount of curiosity surrounding it. with some wanting to hear it. And so, over the years, many have tried getting in on this opportunity for attention by creating a convincing fake of the audio clip. And it worked, with the fake audio clip circulating all around the internet, and many dismissing it as the actual recording. Kevin the Bearman Sanders of Yellowstone Outdoor Adventures confirmed that it's nothing more than a reenactment, as he was able to hear 2 minutes of the actual audio, which he has transcribed on his website. And based on that transcription, we can piece together the events of that night.
It's him screaming in like agonizing pain, no?
It all took place. On the night of October 5th, 2003, Timothy and Amy were inside their tent, nestled deep within the Alaskan wilderness. As they began to settle in for another uneventful night, the silence was suddenly interrupted by the sound of a grizzly bear outside their tent. Timothy left the tent to investigate. He walked towards the bear, speaking softly to it and encouraging it to leave. The bear kept his distance from Timothy, likely judging how much of a threat he was. This stillness made him believe it would be like any other bear encounter, so he wanted to record at least the audio to use in future presentations. But seemingly out of nowhere, it suddenly attacked him. Unaware of what was going on outside, and now with the camera rolling, Amy asked if the bear was still there. But instead of getting a simple yes or no, she heard Timothy screaming for help. Amy unzipped the tent and rushed out, finding him on the ground with his head in the bear's mouth. And then the bear retreats into the darkness. However, moments later, the bear's predatory instincts took over. And although it initially retreated, it would only return. This time, far more aggressive than before. The bear begins dragging Timothy away, with Amy fire, screaming and hitting the bear in a desperate attempt to save him. But the bear's attack is relentless, and her efforts are no match compared to the bear's size, strength, and determination. Amy's screams helplessly continue, until they abruptly go silent, as the tape comes to a stop, capturing nothing but their screams. It is presumed that after the recording ends, the bear turns its full attention right to Amy, ultimately subjecting her to the same exact horrific fate. The actual audio of this disturbing incident is often classified as lost media, as the only existing copy of it is locked away in a safe deposit box for nobody to hear.
Why not just destroy it?
Forever, as Jewel never plans on releasing it, let alone listen to it. But primarily,
she was looking onto it like she hated her ex and she listens to it all the time.
Bears, and not just his gruesome death. But somewhere out there, locked away in the confines.
Because he was definitely, he got an upgrade with his new girl. That girl looked ugly.
Of a man
not like that,
and his
but
girlfriend, tragically losing their lives.
Look how pretty. Look, they look like
from the very same thing that gave the man purpose, and that he devoted his whole life to understanding and preserving. An ambitious dream to unite humans and the wild, only for that dream to be shattered in his face by the very same thing he built it for.
What the fuck? That one was dark, kind of not, but it wasn't as spooky as the other ones. Like this one was like nature. Holy man. 6 most disturbing places in Las Vegas. Oh my god, look at that lady's face. Bing bing bong. Thanks for watching. I love you guys.